Yeah, you're good.
All right, council members, the legislation to be discussed in our pre-caucus meeting. I'd like to begin with ordinance number 1, sponsored by Councilman Burmaster, where stops required, intersection where stops required, Finkel and Grandview Ave. Councilman Burmaster.
I'm good with that, thank you.
Any discussion? Discussion's closed. Next piece of legislation is an announcement for July and August for common council meetings. Are there any conflicts with our schedules for this new agenda?
I don't think so. I didn't get a chance to look yet.
Oh, you didn't see it yet or no?
She
Are you?
No, I did.
She
but I
wasn't here
here.
at the
I
meeting,
think
Mark.
I'm good, but.
I'll give you a few moments. Go ahead.
What was the other one?
Wednesday, July 19th and August 16th.
Okay, no.
You're good? Any additional discussions? Discussion is closed. Our next piece of legislation is a bond ordinance for a serial bond for $250,000. Who's here to talk about the computer equipment? Do we have anybody here?
Nobody.
Oh, that's not good.
That's gonna go in committee.
Yeah, it's gotta go in committee. I don't understand why we just bonded it and didn't have that.
Yeah, that's a little
That's what I
strange.
wanted to, yeah.
Okay, majority of council is going to refer it to committee. We'll discuss it then.
Okay, why is this whole,
This came out of nowhere.
Yeah, that one's a little, I'm a little. Okay, our next piece of legislation is an ordinance sponsored by Councilman Irving, handicap parking sign required. Mr. Irving, are you okay with this ordinance?
Yes.
Any discussion? Discussion is closed. Our next piece of legislation is the Board of Assessment appointment, David Williams. I think David is there. We're just going to extend his appointment to 2027. Any discussions? Discussion is closed. Our next piece of legislation is proposed resolution number 6, sponsored by Councilwoman Friend, Historic Preservation Grant for the Baptist Church. Would you like to talk about this?
So Pastor Kelsey is here. She can speak to it. I'm hoping that we go full council on this. This was a resolution that we passed last year, correct? But the application for the grant didn't get in time, and so they are making another go for it this year, correct?
Right.
Okay. So this is something we passed last year, and they just, yeah, their architect didn't get their drawings done in time to actually apply for the grant, so they're applying this year. This is part of a long-term grants that they've been using to redo the roof of Tabernacle Baptist.
Okay, so there's no financial impact for right now for
Nope,
the city
none for the
budget?
city, nope. They just,
Not putting this in. This is Katie's area, ain't it?
it is. I asked the clerks to add Katie, and I don't know, Katie or the clerks didn't communicate, but it is.
Yeah, we did this
Right.
last year,
Yeah.
and
But
the
they didn't end up
pastor
applying for it,
and
so.
the pastor explained it in detail,
Right.
actually, in the
Right.
council. You guys
Yeah.
were all about it.
I'd like to go full council on this.
I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Okay, clerk, can you please to full council? Any other additional discussion on this legislation? Okay, discussion's closed on number 6. We're on number 7. This is sponsored by Councilwoman Friend for Historical Preservation Grant. Would you like to summarize this grant for us, please?
So Frank Williams asked me to put this forward. They are applying for a grant in order to redo the chapel at Forest Hill.
So
We
again,
don't
no,
need individual letters anymore because they requested individual letters from councilmen. Is this gonna cover all that?
I think so. He asked that from me, and I said, would you rather have a resolution from the council? He said that would be great.
Is this the same grant that the other, they're both applying for the same grant?
Forest Hill State Historic Preservation Grant, yeah.
Yeah.
I know,
Is this
they
gonna
sent out a
hurt?
request to get individual letters, but this will cover it now?
Yeah, I think so. I think if we do this, then we don't need to do individual letters, correct?
So does this hurt the grant for the other people that we approved
I
last
don't-
year?
No, I think that these grants, multiple institutions in one city get these grants pretty typically. So it's not like that. I know the one you're thinking of. You're thinking of the Main Street, which was like they would only give out one in a city at a
It was
time.
something like for even the Uptown went for, there was
That's
like.
the Main Street,
Yeah,
right?
Okay,
So this is not like that.
okay.
Is there full support for full council on this one?
Go full council on this?
Yep.
If you don't mind, clerk? Any other additional discussion on resolution number 7? Resolution number 7 is now closed. Okay, this looks like a contract for the codes department. Quite lengthy. Is anybody here to speak about the contract? Mr. President, oh, wait,
No, I did call the codes commissioner about this,
Ann?
actually.
And I believe he's.
Oh, yeah, you could speak
He's
to it.
supposed to be coming.
Yeah.
All right, council members, if you don't mind, will we put number 8 to the side until he attends?
In summary, though, just in case he does not come, but I think he is, he went through it and said that it's basically reestablishing the agreement we had prior. That's why the memo references the money that we always receive from the county. But there are amendments in it so that they can do different types of inspections on the hotels, motels, and temporary housing. Strengthens the actual ability for the city to do that on behalf of the county. So that's the nature of it.
Yeah.
So if he's not here.
So, no, isn't this?
Explain it, put it in committee, right?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
But even if he is here, this seems like a pretty lengthy document just to vote
It's
on.
just it's a renewal. We've already-
It's a renewal, so I expected he would go through the amendments with us.
Yeah, it is basically a renewal, with those, there's some minor modifications, but it has been something we've done in the past.
How long do these last in general?
I believe this one is last,
Crazy.
I believe this one is for just a year.
No, we do it every year. This is the $282,000 that the county reimburses us,
It's a
yeah.
reimbursement to our budget.
Yeah.
No, I understand all that, but how long is the intermunicipal
Yeah,
agreement?
1 year.
We have to do it because if not, we're gonna lose $280,000.
Well, the point is, we don't typically see the contract because we renew it as is. The only reason we have the whole contract in our packet is because of those amendments. So I'll shoot him a text. and
Does
make sure
anybody
he's
have
coming.
Mr. Phillips's number? Maybe we
Yeah.
can contact him and ask him to appear, please? Okay, we'll put that on hold for now, council. If he doesn't appear, of course, we'll refer it to committee. Our next piece of legislation is for the sale of UPD vehicles. Quite a extensive list.
The only problem that I have is, with the 2017 Ford Taurus and the 2018 Ford Explorer,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those are pretty decent miles. Obviously, it's not available for the police department, but, I mean, there's no other department inside city government that could use those vehicles before we sell them. I mean, that would be the only question that I would have. I mean, there's low mileage on them. You know,
Beyond
we
its
go in
useful life.
rotation of vehicles constantly for other departments. I would at least like to see, actually, the only other one was,
Were they told?
no, they're not totaled, they can't use them just from.
I have a
Why-
memo here that
why
if someone
not?
wants to make a copy, they
Sure,
can pass
do you
it
have a
along.
little explanation
Yeah,
of-
it has more detailed explanations on it.
All right, so can you
So-
just give me like
Yeah,
the
so go ahead with, which
2017
one do you have a
and
question?
2018?
Before?
Number 4.
It's number 4, which is a 2018 Ford
2018
Explorer.
Ford Explorer, there's a VIN that one Frank Mary 5K, does it
Yep,
start with?
yep.
Yep.
Okay, so it says, this vehicle has 46,872 miles. Vehicle was involved in an accident resulting in it being totaled out.
Oh, okay.
Vehicle was bought back for parts and is no longer needed.
Oh, okay, all right, that makes sense.
If there's
And then
any other questions on any other
The
vehicles?
other one was a
Number
2017 Ford Taurus with,
This vehicle has 27,133 miles, that's the one we're talking about?
Yep.
Yep.
Vehicle has fire damage and is in need of repairs far exceeding the value of the vehicle, it states.
okay.
that's helpful.
Did we recoup, I mean, another thing, the only other question I would ask, I mean, the vehicles that we purchased before, were lease vehicle purchases, so I mean, I know that sometimes we go outright and buy them. Was the insurance at least recovered on some of these vehicles, do we know of?
Yes.
Okay.
It depends
You
on
covered
whose
it in
fault.
That
DNA.
just came into
Well,
ENA.
Yeah,
Depends
I
on
mean,
whose
even if
fault.
it was my fault, I mean, I just wanna make sure that we're just not getting rid of vehicles, you know, just because of mileage
If
percent.
it's their fault, we're getting rid of the
I was
vehicle.
gonna say,
It's not my job,
I was
Frank,
gonna
but-
say, I don't wanna speak for the police department, but I think they run their vehicles into the ground to the best of their ability.
I
You
was
know,
told
until-
that basically all of these are junk. That's
Yeah,
the
okay,
rules.
then that's all I wanted to
All
know.
right,
I mean, like I said, low mileage,
All
just
right,
for that,
we
so
just need
makes
to
sense.
add, we'll add the vehicle heavy damage to, can you add that to the legislation, both vehicles with heavy damage? And whatever report you have?
Yeah, I could-
We
I could
we
give this to
attach that
everyone.
to the legislation?
Yes.
And
If you
the
don't
only,
mind?
the only other question, just for our purposes, I know that we went back to actually purchasing vehicles up front, but the good thing about leasing vehicles, and this is something that we should look into, you know, look back into, is when we lease them, it was for a certain amount of years, you know, where it would be covered under the warranty. You know, outright purchasing them is sometimes at a greater value, but the lease purchase did cover some of those damages. So, just something that we could look into again.
Leasing again?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because that's why it's on a, I think it was like a 5-year term.
And you bought
that
for a
way, every
dollar,
5
actually.
years, it would just, we started going into a plan
I
where we were
don't-
trying to repurchase vehicles on that lease purchase agreement every 5 years.
I don't know the circumstances, because we talked about this a while ago. I think there was a problem with where we were leasing the vehicles, and it was no longer an option for us to do that, and I don't think that there were any other,
Yeah, if, like I said.
companies that were viable for us to do that, so I think
And-
that's why.
And that's fine, if we can
But
just go back to.
I don't know that 100%.
Yeah, if we can just go back to maybe looking at that option, because now, I mean, now we, what, the vehicle's 2018, we're junking it, where it could have been.
I'll
part of that
certainly
lease
bring that up
purchase
to the
agreement.
deputy chief and the chief.
All right, I
yeah.
appreciate that, thank you.
Okay, is there any additional concern about the legislation? The actual specific reasons, of course, will be added to the legislation. Is there any other additional discussions on this? Okay, number 8 is closed. Number 9 is closed. And we're moving right now to an transfer, an E&A transfer. Any person who sits on E&A would like to give us a summary of the transfer?
It's pretty self-explanatory. These were chargebacks to the city's paving program. So, our city engineers get paid out of different lines, and so they were charging some money back.
So it went to salary to wages? I don't, how did that happen, do you know?
Mike?
Well, this is an end of year, budget year cleanup,
Right.
as the budget director calls it. So this was just a redistribution of funds from the 2022-2023 budget year. This is prior budget year.
All right.
So this is closing the books.
Can you make note in the next transfer that you do have? And I know the year is there, 2022, 23, but prior year,
Well, that's
Closing.
evident in the account, because it's an 85-1, whereas the next year will have different accounts.
okay. All right.
But yeah, we could do that.
Just so we know it as soon as it's beginning.
Of 2023,
It literally says, I apologize, but it says E&A transfer for the 2022.
Which is
and
last year, yes.
2023 fiscal years.
Right,
no, It I is.
get it, that's
the
the
Alright.
same issue that I brought up last time, I agree.
Right, alright.
Just end of year cleanup.
That'd be nice. Okay, we do have one piece, is it 11? Yes.
Can I ask a question before we start this, because I just brought up another concern that I have for the contract with Oneida County Code Services for outreach and habilitation, inspections of hotels, blah, 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 blah. We know that the county at one point in time was giving vouchers to, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, sex offenders inside the district. So the only thing that I'm gonna ask is that if we do pass this, just make sure it's reiterated, that we're trying to keep that minimal, if not none. Because it definitely was a big issue that's been brought up on several occasions. And I don't wanna do inspections and approve a grant where that could be a possibility. And I'm not saying that the county has, it was brought up again as of recent, so, just as something to look into.
Okay, Marcus is here. Marcus, would you please tell us about number 8, your contract agreement?
Sure, so we went back and forth with the county. Codes provides services for Oneida County and their social services program. It used to be that everybody that was on Oneida County Public Services, that received housing money, got a codes inspection. New York State Supreme Court said that was unconstitutional, that the people had to consent to an inspection, so now it's offered as an option to health and safety program. So we've been working with the county on how they can best use us and how we can work together. And some of the things that we came up with are in this new contract. And it's basically us working together better. A lot of times there's things like people staying in houses that are uninhabitable, and we don't like to kick them out of their houses without having social services with us. So we form these kind of new co-response teams where we can bring adult protective services, we can bring child protective services, we can bring mental health services with us when we're responding to certain situations where we might have to put somebody out of a home, or when we have squatters in a home, or we have somebody with severe mental health issues that might not understand all the implications of the code inspection. Comes in handy when, we have some people that have mental health problems and they let them out of the hospital in 24 hours, and there's a ton of codes violations. We bring the county with us now, and we work together to try to offer them services that are more appropriate for their living situation. So the new contract is really, we educate the county on what codes are, what to look for, and we work with the county to respond to difficult situations and people, elderly people, people with mental health disabilities, and people that we're gonna have to put out of a house, to make sure that we don't put them out of a house without somewhere else to go.
Marcus, I knew we got around, what, 300,000 plus? What did we get from the county?
I think it's 280. 282. 282.
282? Did you try and negotiate for more money? Did you work it? Did you work it?
We did, and we worked back for how much hours we expected to spend, how much assistance they're gonna give us. So even though we didn't get that much more money, because the volume of inspections are down. You know, it used to be we inspected every house. The volume of inspections are down, but they're also throwing in some human services with us, so we get something out of the deal too. So that we don't have to send everybody to the county building. We can actually bring services to them when we have a codes issue. And a lot of it is child welfare. You know, we'll bring CPS with us. We call the county and we say, guys, we need to address this situation together. So they have kind of an extra human input if they don't have an extra dollar amount input.
All right, any, go ahead, Joey.
Marcus, can you talk to Councilperson Testa's request? Is that in here, what she was just mentioned?
So,
I mean, I know you specifically can't put it in the legislation.
Yeah.
Right.
Here's the issue that I have.
Well,
and
it's my area more than anything that is affected by it, so.
And I actually gotta be honest with you, I mean, even if you talk about mental health and stuff like that, I mean, there's other people that stay in these hotels as well.
Right.
And I constantly see calls for North Tennessee Street for hotels for mental health issues. So, I mean, I think, you know, it's great that we do this, and obviously the child welfare, I take obviously a little more sensitive for the fact that I know that there's kids that need a place to go if the place that they're living in is not, you know, humane, you know, inhabitable, so to speak. But at the same time, I just, you know, I just want to make sure that we're being a little proactive on where we place certain people and why and the reason that we're doing it.
so this
How
goes
long they're
beyond,
there for.
so this goes beyond the scope of codes a little bit. You know, codes are just dealing with the codes inspections. We're not dealing with necessarily who we place where. That's a bigger social service question. You know, the answer that the county or everybody else will give you is you gotta house the population you have. And some of the most hard to house people are people that nobody wants to live near. We have, as an administration, outside of codes, work to try to make sure that there's a more fair sharing of the burden among all the 41 municipalities in Oneida County. We shouldn't have to take everybody that Boonville can't house, everybody that Rome can't house, and the county is working, and you've seen it in the news, to build other housing alternatives outside of just one city in the whole county where every single person that's undesirable has to live in.
Well, we have not helped that in totality. I mean, by allowing certain apartment complexes and stuff like that, which that's here nor there. But as long as on you and the codes perspective are just kind of looking at that and just, you know, keeping an eye out, because obviously you're the one that does the
Yeah,
inspection.
we work.
You know, just good communication with
We
the
don't wanna
police
be the only
department, fire
place.
department, and stuff like that.
And
That's-
we'll
that's
respond
it.
throughout the county. We'll do inspections
Right.
outside of the city of Utica and stuff like that.
What's that?
Sometimes you have no knowledge of the actual,
Of somebody's background.
Right.
A lot of, look, why is somebody homeless? It's because they can't find somewhere to live. Who can't find somewhere to live? Usually somebody's getting released from some kind of treatment, some kind of incarceration situation, right? And we try to house them. I mean, we have to house the population we have. Right now, we did a housing study. We have, just maybe short of a housing crisis. I mean, that's why rents are going up. There's not a lot of units around. We're having a difficult time housing people. Closing down the Ogleston didn't help, right? But there's not enough units for people. And you know, we're working to build more units so that affordability goes down for everybody, but we want to make sure that there's units throughout the county. Utica can't be the only place that houses people.
Well, and I think that's the big issue that you have to look at is you can't place somebody that has 4 children next to a house that you have a level 4 or whatever, level 1, level 2, level 3 sex offender. And unfortunately, Utica has bought 300 sex offenders living in a 1-mile radius of one another. I mean, you just kind of got to look at the picture. Not saying that you want to put a sex offender in, another municipality, but there's a reason we have a housing crisis is because of what we house now. And
Well,
that's the bigger issue that people got to look at too.
Some of the problem
'Cause
that,
if I was in a housing crisis, beggars can't be choosers by any means, and I'm not saying that that's their issue there, right? Like the issue is like they can't find a place to live, but there might be a nice apartment on Rector Street, but they're not going to move 4 kids to a house that's next to a sex offender. So I think the bigger picture is what we're housing inside the city of Utica.
but
We need
when
to
you
look
look
at
at
too.
that though, there's
I've seen the map. It's pretty
yeah,
bad.
no, it's true, and it's because of the old philosophy that I would argue was a little bit discriminatory towards urban areas, in that all of the urban areas house all of the services, and they figured that makes the services more efficient because they're all near each other, right? Well, now we have more ways to get in touch with people, more ways to transport, and so nationally, HUD is trying to get away from that model. And when you look at affordable housing or some complex that goes up, you can't just look at the number of units. You have to look at the HUD target populations that go in those units. Some of them have to be seniors. Some of them are children that are released from foster care because they've aged out of the system. Some are, so it can't just be anybody. You look at those populations and make sure that you're responding to the needs of your particular municipality, and you're not taking on the needs of every municipality in the county that doesn't want something.
Well, then you look at outside areas. How many housing populations does HUD put in Clinton? How many housing
Right.
populations does HUD put in
Right.
New York Mills? How many housing populations does HUD put in New Hartford? Utica is the dumping ground, and unfortunately, not saying that you look at the elder population and obviously children that come out of foster. We're not targeting. I'm not talking about those people, and I don't think neither are you. But at the same time, we do take our responsibility inside
But
the
that's
city.
the fight we're fighting,
More-
right?
more
And
than-
it
more
has
than that.
changed. I mean, it's gotten better. There has been.
Well, it is an extent. No, I don't disagree
No,
with that. I'm just saying, like,
no,
think
I'm just
about
saying,
it. If you look at the
there's-
amount of
New York
housing
Mills is now
complexes
matching our
that,
number.
the amount of housing complexes that have gone up, they're just in the city of Utica. I mean, outside areas do not take the housing complexes that the city of Utica has taken on over the past
And it's not,
several decades.
we have limited control over that, right? Because it's a big global issue that exists all across the country. And it has gotten better, and there are more things going in other places. Part of the problem is their zoning. Something's zoned for single-family residential, you can't build anything there, and you gotta fight the whole fight. You saw when MHA tried to build something in New Hartford. So, we're fighting that fight, and it's better than it was as far as distribution. We're working to make it even better.
Okay. Any other additional discussion? Marcus, you're good with that contract?
Yeah, I helped negotiate it. I'm proud of it.
Okay. Any continued discussions on the contract agreement? Okay. Let's close the contract agreement. Let's get the proposed ordinance number. Mike, you have something?
I was just gonna say, we do have 3 properties that are in public hearing, if you want to go over those and make sure the council's okay with them.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Proposed ordinance number 11. This was I guess a fix. Our corporate counsel, Stephanie DeGiorgio, is going to give us a quick summary on the why we need to vote on this. And we'll discuss it from there.
So,
Oh, the judge got something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Your Honor.
This was, when this last batch of ordinances came through that we approved, one we didn't approve was you didn't approve, was the bike lanes. And Charlie Brown and Stephanie both agreed that should have been addressed specifically. Now, I had drawn an ordinance that did that specifically, but at the time, some members of the council thought it was redundant because they weren't going to approve the part about the bike lanes that was submitted to them in the first place. That probably was an error on my part, but Mr. Giorgio was kind enough to volunteer that she would do an ordinance that would meet the approval of Mr. Brown and her and myself. And she has done that, and I thank her very much because that takes that question out of a question. There is no question if you do it this way, because it specifically mentions the city streets, the article that is in the code. So that having been said, I'd say that for those of you who are in favor of the negative vote on the bike lanes last time, this is a more specific and directs a more direct approach, so that one reading the books will show that the Common Council did an affirmative action on that, and this does that.
Okay.
So that's why it's here in this form. The other one I drew, I can't even remember what it was, but I did specifically address the city streets ordinance in that one. So
Hold on, Sam, we got two in front of you. Frank,
I take the fault for not having done what has been presented tonight, which is really the proper way to do it. And they're right.
thank you, Your Honor. Frankie DeBrango, we have the floor.
Yeah, just a question here. Is it Cornelia Street or is it Court Street? Doesn't it go to Court?
No, it's Cornelia.
Huh?
Because
Cornelia?
they
This
didn't
stuff.
finish the lines, but what was passed was actually all the way up to the museum.
Cottage split.
Cottage,
And
actually.
the original?
It's not Cornelia.
It turns into a share road after Cornelia.
Well, I also
right.
questioned that, but I didn't
We're
look
good
back
on, we're
to
good
that.
on that?
Yeah, Cornelia is
I
the
thought
right
the
street,
original
because if
one
you look at
went
the map.
To Court
Court.
Street,
Yeah.
and that's what we voted on. But
No.
now,
Cornelia.
No,
we're
you
only going
voted
to
on-
Cornelia Street?
No, you voted to
We
Cottage,
voted on Cottage.
all the
But,
way to Cottage.
but the actual roadway gets smaller further up, so they couldn't, if the proposed bike lane was gonna be there, they couldn't put the
Period.
proposed bike lane there anyways, so you're not gonna see that,
Okay.
It turns into a multimodal lane after Cornelia.
yes.
So will we be removing the line? Is that what we're gonna be doing?
No.
Or how is that gonna be designated as a
It's,
non-bike,
it's gonna be hashed,
Channelization
like
buffer.
striped or
That's what they're
whatever?
calling it.
Diagonal lines within that section.
yes.
We got rid of the bike lanes, didn't we?
Yeah.
We just
Well, this
didn't
is what
legislate
this is
them.
doing.
So,
It was like a
It's
technicality.
now a buffer. I guess.
It, so, I spoke with Mike Mahoney, you can't have, lane widths over a certain amount, they have to be designated and set. So, based on the parking and based on the width of the road, there has to be a specific lane designation. I believe these ones are 12 foot, which is what DOT recommends for the width of the road to be. So you need to have that end barrier for the end of the width of the road. So because there's no bike lane, like I said, it's gonna be hashed out, so it's clearly not marked as that, but, and it would allow, in this case, those people getting out of their vehicles, that buffer zone from traffic.
So it's gonna be painted, there's gonna be lines like painted out.
Yes, yes. Frankie, you all set?
Yeah.
Katie?
Yeah, I just wanted to go over, I had a question. I know we never legislated the bike lanes, but one of the things when we look at Complete Streets policy, I see that we want to amend this, so it would be 2-31-8, saying no bike lanes on Genesee Street. But if we look at the Complete Streets policy, 2-31-4, I'm going to read it. It's the inability to include bicycle or pedestrian facilities to be documented. And I have a question on this, that's why. If the City of Utica Engineering Department determines that the inclusion or bicycle or pedestrian facilities are unable to be accommodated on a roadway or within the City of Utica right-of-way proposed for construction or improvement, the engineer of the engineering department shall provide said determination in writing with supporting documentation to the Utica City Council for its information. Have you received that? Are we in receipt?
So there's two aspects to this. And the reason that this got brought up, and I talked about it with Judge, and I am presenting this before you now, is you can, with the legislation as it currently reads, and based on my understanding of what engineering did per the Complete Streets study guidelines, bike lanes are feasible. They did the study, they can be put there. So per this, we'd have to put the bike lane down. The council's intent, based on my understanding of what was passed, they did not pass the bike lane, which what we would need to be able to enforce ticketing anybody who stopped, parked, stood in that area. That being said, you can take another approach and keep the ordinance as is and pass the legislation needed for the bike lane, or my understanding the council's intent is they don't want the bike lane, so we need to have legislation that shows that you're not allowing the bike lane in that area, so we don't have anything conflicting.
Hold on.
The engineering department is not gonna supply something saying that it's not to be accommodated, because it can be, but the council doesn't want it there, so we have conflict, and the council needs to resolve that somehow, some way, and this is the mechanism that I chose based on that information.
Katie, you all set?
Yeah, well, the last question then, so if it's not to be a bike lane and we're not allowed to bike on the sidewalk, I think that's 2-16, 295, so that would be, then we ride in traffic, now it's just one lane, which I would like to make to the point, we will then slow down traffic at that point. I know everybody's concern was to not back up traffic. I am still advocating for bike lanes, because then let's get us out of the way of the one lane. But that said, would we be able to do share road symbols in there, or has that been discussed?
That hasn't, I don't believe they're gonna be doing the share road. I mean, technically, it's supposed to be a share road anyways. I mean, that's the rules of the road.
Right, that's what I was gonna say. I mean, that's where the bikes
Are supposed to ride. So, I mean, the bikes are, I mean, they're supposed to abide by traffic rules and regulations when they are out in the city where there's other areas where we don't have bike lanes, where we don't have shared road signs. So they'll have to abide by all those things, as will vehicles.
All set? Katie? Same minute.
Thank you. So, two things. Let's look at section 2-31-1, incorporation of concepts, features, and practices. The City of Utica Engineering Department should incorporate complete streets, concept designs, features, and practices to the extent appropriate and feasible in the planning, design, budgeting, and implementation of local highway, street, sidewalk, and improvement projects undertaken by the department. So my issue here is complete streets has been implemented inside the city. The biggest mistake that this council made was, number one, getting themselves involved politically into implementing complete streets inside the city of Utica, okay? Because here's what happens. Instead of us now going to the engineering department and saying, you wanna know what? You wanna implement something like this inside the city of Utica. This is from an engineering concept, an engineering design, an actual engineer who designs roads and helps us understand how complete streets could be implemented inside the city. We have come to the fact that now we're ordaining and amending complete streets when this should have just been left to the engineering department completely. This council was given a complete streets legislation, which has been brutally battered inside the media in this council, in any social norm of trying to go down Genesee Street. And it was a concept that it took 2 years out of my life, working alongside the engineering department, the New York State Department of Transportation, so on and so forth, to try and implement it inside the city. And here we are now adding a section of exemptions because this council chose to pass a piece of legislation that said that they were going to do a temporary, design adding bike lanes to Genesee Street. Here we are, 6 months later, there's no such thing as a bike lane on Genesee Street anymore, and now we have a buffer lane. It's infuriating to say the least, okay? Because again, if the politics was taken out of it, and if it was left up to the engineering department, alongside the New York State Department of Transportation and everyone there, we wouldn't even be sitting here discussing this legislation, okay? So for me, it's infuriating even knowing that I have to pass an ordinance amending the complete streets policy because of politics, okay? So I'm gonna leave that with that, and obviously I'll support this piece of legislation because I thought the whole concept of implementing, and it's not even complete streets, like we haven't even implemented complete streets there. We implemented a road diet, is what the council ended up doing by involving themselves and inserting themselves into a piece of legislation that specifically wrote that the engineering department was the lead on this, okay? And unfortunately, here we are now with an ordinance amending complete streets when that shouldn't even been the process from the get-go, so.
1 minute, Michael. I got Celeste first. Go ahead, Celeste.
Thank you. So, Ms. DeGiorgio, does this prohibit bicycles from being on downtown Genesee Street?
No.
Where do you expect them to go? If we were to pass this legislation, where should the bikes be?
On the road where they're,
Which part of the road?
on the side of the road.
Can you be more specific?
Can I answer that really quick?
No.
And-
No, with all
I would
due
like
respect.
the officer here to provide input, because they aren't supposed to be on the side of the road. They should be in the actual traffic.
Right.
Can you?
Doing this, right?
Yeah, like.
Or left or right, I mean, come on.
I'm sorry.
There's New York State Vehicle and Traffic Law
Yeah.
that governs the operation of bicyclists. And they would be subject to all those, laws inside the New York State Vehicle and Traffic Law.
Thank you.
Okay.
Same way they were for 50 years.
I still have the
Come
floor.
on, Joe, let this us.
I have the floor. Thanks. So, does this legislation, if we were to pass it, mean that they shouldn't be in that 5-foot wide street
This
strip?
is not to say that they can't, it's not a designated bike lane. So it's not an only for bikes only. So if people are utilizing it for, which they shouldn't be because it's a buffer zone and people are gonna be getting out of cars. But if people are traversing that, if cars are parked, they shouldn't be. But if cars are parked in that buffer zone,
Right.
it's not a designated bike lane.
Right.
It's not that, it is a buffer
So
zone.
where, from your point, if we were to pass this legislation, from a legal point of view, where do you think the bicycles appropriately belong?
In the road. And there's no such thing
Stop.
as a buffer.
No, stop. Which part of the road, Mr. Giorgio?
The shoulder of the road.
Okay, the road goes from the sidewalk to the sidewalk. Which part of the road? Which part of within a lane? Which lane?
Can we?
The road
Come-
has parking lane, it has
I give it to you.
curbs, and then it has parallel parking on both sides, then it has this buffer lane, then it has a travel lane in each direction, and then it has a center turning lane. So which part of the road do you legally expect the bicycles to travel in?
I would expect them to be in the lane, the road, the lane that
As
is
we all-
Road
designated.
is still,
And we
I
all
can't say this
travel
enough.
there.
Road is a very general term. I'm asking you to be more legally specific than the road. The road is, there are cars parked on the road, there's a turning
Well,
lane.
the only thing that I'll say is this, if they're traversing down Genesee Street and they have to make a left-hand turn, they have to be in
The road.
the center of the road to make that
center,
turn.
okay. The
And
center
turn
is
that
at
way
least a
like a
little bit more
vehicle
specific. Right.
would turn.
Right.
If they're obviously turning and making a right-hand turn, if they're going down towards North Utica, they're gonna be at the probably furthermost edge of that lane.
They
The
have
bike
to
does
flow
not
with
take
the
up
flow of
the whole
traffic.
Of that
lane.
lane.
Yes.
So you don't expect them to travel in the buffer, in what we're calling now the buffer lane?
No,
Okay, so then it does seem to me that Ms. Aiello is right. We're gonna slow down traffic. If people do what they're legally required to do. They're
Okay.
gonna be in the same lane with the cars. That's gonna slow them
Please.
down, correct?
what the council
Only in the
wants,
summer.
Hold on.
what the council wants to do with this, they have two options, and the two options are this. You can, one, leave the ordinance as is, and you need to pass something saying, we have a bike lane on Genesee Street so that when people are parking, stopped, or in that zone, or doing things that are against traffic regulations, that the police can ticket for that purpose. The bike lane is supposed to be only for bikes, so we don't want motorcycles or anybody else traversing in that lane. That's why we need something so that we can enforce it. If you don't choose that option, we have an ordinance as it reads right now that says we're supposed to have a bike lane. If you don't want a bike lane, we need something saying you don't want a bike lane and that's not supposed to be a bike lane. The reason this is all brought up is because the road needs to be striped. They're gonna be out there grinding.
Permanently striped.
Permanently striped. They're gonna be out there, grinding off the, temporary striping and putting down, the final plans and layout that was already passed. But we need to know what to do with that cross section. And we don't want there to be a conflict or issues, so whatever you choose, you can choose. Those are the two options, but they can't be in conflict with each other.
Celeste, you all set?
Yeah.
President Galimi, please, you have the floor.
So many things just came up.
That's how I feel right now.
Hang
It's like,
on.
where do you start?
Hold on.
Patience is a virtue,
Right.
one at a time.
No, so the first thing I wanted to address, there's gonna be three things now, and I'll be brief.
Okay.
But the first thing I wanted to address was similar, but in summary, to what Councilwoman Colosimo Testa was discussing. When we passed the Complete Streets ordinance, we were ordaining a process to which the engineering department would use from here on out when reconstructing or rebuilding any roadway. And because, well, this is a proposed piece, but I'll phrase it the way I phrase it. Because the council may want to not have bike lanes on Genesee Street, okay, we're putting an exemption in the process specific to a street. And if that street is to be rebuilt again, I understand why you're saying, okay, we're gonna put this exemption in here, so we're not gonna do that. But it also sets a precedence where every time we don't like something from the outcome of a complete streets process, we're gonna add an exemption. So the reality is, we didn't pass the legislation as a body to add the bike lane. So I understand you wanted to make it more definitive so that when they're striping it and they're putting hash marks in the channelization buffer, there's no question there. But the reality is, if the council does not pass the other piece of legislation prior to the striping, then they do have to stripe it the way they stripe it. I guess, why isn't this going into a different piece of the city code? Because this is a process. All right, that was number one. All right, it's not really a question, I'm just saying. All right. Number two, about the traffic. Even if that was a bike lane and had bicycles painted in it, a bicyclist isn't mandated to be in that bike lane. Bicycles have to follow traffic laws, and when they are in the traffic, they are part of the actual traffic that is flowing in that actual traffic lane with the cars. For years, I've been driving downtown, and bicycles have been either behind me or in front of me in the lane. And that's where they are. It's how it is. And as far as slowing traffic down, even if we had an uptick of bicyclists by like 500%, I drive downtown and I bike, and I also ride my bike downtown. It's not going to slow traffic down to the point where, I mean, we turned Genesee Street into a two-lane road with a center turning lane. That's just the reality of it. Bicycles can still be in the lane with traffic even if there's a bike lane, because they may not prefer being next to traffic. They may prefer being with the traffic. But the main thing is augmenting a process because we don't like a specific thing is what I'm questioning there. If there's somewhere else we could put it. Or just accept the fact that it wasn't passed, so when they stripe the road, it's not a bike lane. I mean, it's...
And if that is the case, if nothing gets passed, the road will have to be striped as a bike lane, but we will not be able to enforce ticketing in that lane.
If this isn't passed, why would it?
Because the original one that was proposed had language in there saying that cars are not to park in that lane, the bike lane.
Mm-hmm.
We're not supposed to have other...
Yeah, but we didn't pass the bike lane as a body.
I know you didn't pass.
And I'm just talking process.
What I'm saying
Zero
is,
opinion.
is based on the complete streets, pretend that there was no other legislation. If we pass complete streets and do this and we have the bike lane and they go out and stripe with a bike lane, we need something to be able to enforce the bike lane, much like, we did with, when we have no parking, no other, that's what I'm treating.
The complete streets ordinance in our code presents a policy that must be used when deciding how to reconstruct a roadway.
That's because we never passed complete streets, we passed the road diet.
No, I'm talking about the actual complete streets.
I don't agree with that.
No.
I don't agree with that.
Hang on.
Yeah, just finish.
I'm not talking about what we passed for the road.
I'm not talking about that.
the policy.
I think that the city charter of Utica, which has never been challenged, and this is clear.
I'm just asking.
Everything
if we
that
can
has
just
to do
replace
with
it.
parking and streets in the city of Utica is only in the power of the common council
Of course.
and not an administrative function. The common council, without any authority, found a reconfiguration of the streets from Cornelia Place to Riscony without permission. And they said they were doing it under complete streets, if recall. I pointed out that the complete streets that was passed did not require the approval of the common council, and that was an error. And when we amended that to make sure that it conformed with the charter. Also, this one says here, this section here, that the city of Utica doesn't have to have bike lanes if they're not approved. Now, it says the engineering department approved, the engineering department did approve it and did whatever study they did, and they also wanted a temporary study. They actually asked permission for a temporary study, and it was given to them, a 90-day study. So the lanes were properly marked. But ultimately, the way the lanes are marked and how the traffic is on Genesee Street by the ordinances that were submitted the last time at the meeting are determined by the Common Council, the Common Council only. Nobody else has that administrative power. Nobody else can do it. Now, I asked Mr. Giorgio to agree on a ordinance that her department agreed on. And I don't come here to second guess Mr. Giorgio and Mr. Brown. I just specifically told them that the Common Council, when it did not pass the ordinance approving that temporary plan, some thought that that temporary plan was automatically gone anyway, like some other things that are assumptions.
absolutely.
So I said, okay. And then, of course, we see the bike lanes, even though they said they don't want bike lanes by reference, but not by actually. So now, and I had an ordinance saying that there would be no bike lanes and that study was kaput. Well, they didn't do that. So I see this ordinance that Mr. Giorgio prepared for tonight, and I don't object any criticism to that at all. But ultimately, whatever happens on that street has to be passed by the Common Council, or that gentleman in the blue uniform cannot enforce anything. Now, I'll tell you one last thing. Bicycles been running up and down Genesee Street probably for 100 years. So some fellow, someplace in the world, decided, just like we decided urban renewal and we were gonna take down all the buildings and build parks, decided the city street thing. It sounded like a good idea. The council did not object to it. We passed it and all that, but just needed some little bit of revision. But you can't take from the council what is their power ultimately all the time. And I don't care how many administrative decisions are tossed around.
Thank you, Ron.
The council is specifically saying that there will be no bike lanes from Cornelia to Genesee Street. That's it.
All right, so the last thing I had was this, though, because this is an ordinance,
Correct.
Yes.
and it needs unanimous support if it was to pass.
I'm assuming there's two of my colleagues that are not supporting it at this
Well,
time.
so without taking a straw poll,
It'll
we
go-
have to assume that you're
Yes.
probably putting this in committee.
Yeah, of course.
So my point
It's going in
is,
committee.
if in the next 2 weeks, that's when the striping equipment comes here and they start working on this, the engineering department needs,
I wasn't in favor of the striping, by the way.
well, regardless,
That's
my
not-
point is, it's not it wasn't passed as a bike lane now, so even if this is in committee, they have to stripe it as the council passed it at its last passage of the overall legislation.
Correct. That's gonna be in our intent
It's not a
anyways.
bike lane.
Correct, it is not a bike lane right now, and I just wanna make it clear that we had to go back out and get something on the road because you couldn't see anything.
Right.
We didn't have, the necessary, I don't think we had the paint yet, so all that stuff will be coming. They're gonna do the complete striping, grinding it all off, and making it exactly as what was passed.
Right.
Or was lack thereof, which is.
And that's my point, yeah.
So, but that is gonna be happening within the next week or so,
But it
so.
can't be enforced.
Well, this sits in committee.
Well,
Yes,
it sits in
but-
committee.
But we need to know for that lane, if it's gonna be hashed out, or if there's gonna be a bike symbol.
All right, hold
That's
on.
what
Well,
the.
right now, the council does not pass it as a bike symbol.
You're not gonna know
Hold on, colleagues, hold on.
It's not
Samantha?
that they don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna continue to reiterate, the council was given something on Wednesday. The engineering department at that time had not completed the checklist that goes along with complete streets. That Saturday, the roads were striped, okay? So again, you can't tell me that this process was implemented properly from the whole entire start to finish. So again, we're bastardizing what complete streets actually is, and it's very unfortunate because it is a good policy. And now we are amending a piece of legislation
Hold on,
to
John.
have an exemption because the city did not properly follow its stuff from start to finish, and this council interjected himself on something that they should have never interjected himself. And here we are 6 months later fixing the mistake of the council by even implementing a temporary road change, which has now cost the city probably close to a few $100,000 for a simple mistake instead of taking their time and letting the engineering department handle it from start to finish. And this is probably the most obnoxious process that I've ever went through you know, next to the extension of term limits by this city council. So, thank you.
sir. Hold on, Joey, 1 second. Katie?
Okay, so many parts here as well. So the checklist
you
was
got it.
completed before the paint actually went down. Yes, it wasn't that
Point of
meeting.
order, according to Brian Thomas, it was not at the
And
time that
point of-
it was passed. Point of order, Frank, because that's
This
misinformation.
is ridiculous.
All right,
Okay,
one
let's
at a
do-
time, then you can rebut.
Point of order, though,
All right.
please.
No, I'm not
It
even
is
done with
most
the sentence.
certainly a
So,
point of order.
as
Let her
Brian
finish.
Thomas said, he said it wasn't done at that time, but I then, so that's what President Galimi asked. I then said to him, would it have changed the outcome? What would the checklist have accomplished? And he said it wouldn't have changed anything from what they actually striped that day. So, here we take it to, we want the engineers to have full control of this. Well, they're the ones who are saying that bike lanes are feasible and appropriate. So then, let's let them have full control. We are now interjecting
We
and trying
voted
to stop this.
7-2, over.
Okay, but it's
It's
either
over.
the engineering department or people are trying to grandstand that it's politicized. So,
Frank, I got one thing.
but I do want, can I have the floor?
Samantha, let her finish, please.
Because I'm so.
And then we'll wrap this up, because it's going in committee anyways, guys.
I very much agree with President Galimi of, okay, if this does get passed, I don't totally see where it would go through Complete Streets Amendment. The actual bike lane legislation we did before was 2-16-386. How
First
was
of all,
that?
I added that section, and the
Okay.
reason I think it needs to go into the complete streets is because you're choosing not to follow what complete streets is, which is that you should have the bike lane.
Got
And there's
it.
already a section in there that says inability to include a bicycle lane, which is why
That would be the inability.
it just makes
Thank you
the
for
most
clarifying that
logical
part.
explanation to put it there. I agree, there's probably a better place if we didn't have complete streets, but the fact that we know that it is feasible and it's kind of an exemption, exception to what we're doing here, that's why I think
Thank
it
you.
needs to go here.
That makes sense. Great.
Joseph?
Yes, I just
And then
want to,
Mark.
I just want to clarify one thing with Corporation Council here. So, this is going to lie in committee. We already passed it 7-2 for no bike lanes. Wait, let me ask the question. So, if Saturday they start striping, okay, they're gonna do whatever they were gonna do for no bike lane. Obviously, he can't arrest anybody until we pass that in 2 weeks, correct?
Correct.
But by us putting it in committee, they're not gonna come in here on Saturday, do the streets, and say, well, it wasn't passed yet, when it was already passed, what was
That's not
it, 4
gonna
weeks
happen,
ago?
John.
Unless we have a secret meeting at 12:05.
That's not gonna happen.
Because this was, you know what, I'm so sick of this, because this was shoved down our throat for
I
6
can-
months, and
I
it's
can tell you-
disgrace.
I can tell you
It's a
this.
disgrace.
I can tell you this, it's not gonna happen this weekend.
Well, we
We're
got 2
hoping that-
weeks.
Yeah, we're hoping that they're coming next week to finish it up.
Okay.
But it's gonna be a process, it's not a.
So,
overnight.
but you're not answering my question. So we turned it down, no bike lane. So they're gonna paint the street wherever they come before the next council meeting. They're
as
gonna
it
do
reads-
it with no bike lane.
As it reads though, they have to stripe it for the bike lane.
That's impossible.
Why?
We didn't specifically.
Mr.
No.
Mr. Chairman.
No, they gotta stripe it for no
Mr.
bike
Point
lane.
of
Chairman.
order, is this going in committee?
Yes, sir.
Mr.
All
Chairman,
right, so,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Could-
I take exception to somebody saying there's no bikes. That's ridiculous. If you drive from the Parkway, in fact, any place from Genesee Street, from the city line to New Hartford, all the way down to Cornelia Street.
Who said there was no bikes?
There's no designated lines or any of that. You ride a bike. You ride the
Right,
bike.
you've
All
been
of a
riding
sudden-
bikes for 100
Just a
years.
second, mister. All of a sudden, everybody's concerned about
Right.
a little area
Exactly.
from Cornelia to Riscony. But really, you can drive your bike any place you want in Utica. There's no restrictions and there's no violations.
Councilman Irvin
So-
stated 4 weeks ago, he rode on a bike when he was 16 years old up and down Genesee
No,
Street.
he voted
Joseph.
because he met with State
No.
Let's sum this up,
Department
please.
officials
Let's sum
who
it up.
said to him,
Mark, you're next.
they thought, in their opinion, it was safer. But for
Trying.
the
I'm
100
trying.
years, people have been driving up and down just each with bicycles.
Judge, this is
And-
going to committee. We're good.
committee.
We're good. We're going to
And
committee.
this all started, and
Mark, can you-
Councilman Testa to say the council made a mistake. In the first place, this came onto the council without any permission in the first place when they did it. Then they asked for permission. When they asked for permission, that means they only have permission for that period. After that, they'd have to ask for it. They didn't get it. So I don't know why someone's putting it onto this body. This body has a right to make its decision as they see at the time. So they were not
Hold
gonna
on, Sam.
continue
Mark's next.
legislation
Real
that
quick.
was done by permission. That's all they're doing.
So-
And I don't-
Chairman, I
don't
have
wanna-
other
I'm not
business
saying you're
I
wrong.
know,
that's
we have
separate
What you
from
do with it
this.
is your
Samantha
business.
and Mark,
Think
you guys are
committee,
done.
fine.
Let's
I
sum it
just
up.
wanted to say one
One
thing.
more thing.
The one thing, and to Judge Garamone's point, the point is that if the engineering department implemented it, okay, which
They
that's
already
what it
did.
which that's what it states in the legislation. If they wanted to add a bike lane and it was temporary, or they wanted to add a bike lane that was permanent, and the council chose not to agree with that bike lane, then they could have put in a resolution. But the fact that this body did pass it, even in the temporary component, and then chose to make it permanent, is the issue that I take with this. Like, there was no problems on Coventry Ave when we added bike lanes, right? Like, the
Contracting-
council wasn't involved in it.
You're
That's-
right, contracting got in the middle of this thing.
Thank you.
When it shouldn't have.
Something-
Right. So I
It
just-
should have
Mark,
ended
Mark.
really in January.
Mark.
I just wanted to
If
clarify
they
that.
just let us do what we were gonna do later in January, that none of this contracting thing would have been a problem.
Correct. Thank you, Judge.
Everything was, and especially, the second edition was never done by the council.
Right.
The session,
Judge, we have to wrap
They
it
did
up.
it, and we never,
That little buffer
we
lane.
never objected to
Came right
it.
out
So-
of nowhere.
So now,
Okay.
they did a second extension without our permission.
Thank you,
So
Ron.
leave it like that, okay?
All right, Mark, please sum it up. 2 minutes. We got to get the
I
other
would-
pieces.
All I wanna say is, when I voted this down, when I voted this down, it was because the chief of police and the chief of the fire department didn't even look at this document, or even before it was even done. Our main safety people, this city, weren't even involved in the process of this complete streets and the whole process. And that's why I voted it down 6 months ago, wherever it was. Because that was the first time Deputy Noonan saw that document. He didn't know what was going on.
Same for us.
You know, I mean, we didn't know nothing. All we know is that, I know that the two top safety people of this city did not see that document when that thing was done.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Is
Okay.
there, Mr. President, you have anything to add before I close it?
Well, I have something completely unrelated to this that was
I'm-
requested
I'm
of
gonna-
me to tell the council.
Oh, okay.
20 minutes about complete streets? We can.
I-
We could do it in committee for the next committee of the whole, if that's gonna wait.
No, this is pertinent to now.
Okay.
There's a piece of legislation in committee,
Okay.
and at the last meeting, it was discussed about rescinding and replacing the designation of the official newspaper. Whether we were going to just choose the Daily Sentinel, or we were going to run both through December 31st, 2023.
Okay.
It was stated, quote, if we find the money, there was potential to do both. And then, of course, the council would still choose whether they were going to do one, the other, or both. I did speak to all the different departments that use advertising. I did have them run their expected costs. And then at ENA, we also discussed this with the budget director. The budget director confirmed that there is money specifically in the URA advertising budget in this budget year that would cover running both. And she did state there was other advertising budgets which would be the same, on the grounds that the budgets were set based on how many notices that had to be run due to all the ARPA projects.
So you got a
And
cost study that you can share with all of us?
Can I?
there's $14,000 in the advertising line for URA.
Okay.
And the quote, it's in an email somewhere, is that they only need 3,900 of it. And the
And-
budget
and-
director confirmed that.
And also, you go,
Okay.
I mean, you go to any gas station or anything like that, I mean, the Daily Sentinel is on top, the Observer Dispatch is on the bottom. I mean, just for our covering our own grounds, I think that's something that we should be able to do. And until we can clarify.
It was requested of me.
But I have an issue,
All around
He's
the
One
done.
at a time, council members, one at a
Okay.
time.
So that-
Michael, you all set?
Yeah, so basically, in summary, the money is there for both, confirmed by the budget director and the departments that actually run advertising budgets.
Okay.
And two, the clerks, deputy clerk and the clerk, have run sample ads that were placed in the Observer Dispatch and gotten the quotes from the Daily Sentinel, and the cost was equivalent, and in the case of the ads that they were asking for the quotes on, the Daily Sentinel was slightly less, but they were equivalent. So on all of the questions regarding this, the Daily Sentinel would be sufficient at this point, and the money is there to run both if the council so chooses to do.
All right,
Okay?
we'll check the transfers, we'll get that set up, so all
Thanks.
the colleagues can have a copy of it. Wait, Celeste and then Frank, go ahead.
So my preference would be that we simply switch the official record paper for the city to the Daily Sentinel. One, because despite the fact that we can afford it, I don't know why we should spend the extra money in order to have both. So I'd like to hear somebody, I'd want to hear a justification for why we would spend the taxpayers' dollar running it in both papers at the same time. I think it's very clear that the Daily Sentinel, I get it that people are sad about the fact that our long-term historical paper has gone away for all intents and purposes. I get that, me too, but the fact of the matter is the Daily Sentinel is now our paper, serving us well, covering topics inside the city, doing a very good job of covering city news. I think that they ought to be the single paper of record. So,
Okay.
I mean, I appreciate that we can afford it, but I don't think that we should spend the money.
I was asked to report on it.
Okay,
All right,
no,
hold on,
I'm
hold
not
on.
objecting
So-
to
Are you
the
all set?
report. I'm giving my
Hold on,
general
Jeff,
point
hold
of view.
on. I get-
I'm not objecting to what you had to say, Mr. President.
All set?
Yep.
Frankie?
First of all, can we cancel the OD in midterm?
Yeah, that's my question.
Before we commit to the
I
Rome
mean-
Sentinel? I don't mind doing that, but I agree with her, $14,000.
Could we
But there's another point I want to make.
Okay.
I know President Galimi used to send out the agenda, and he had right on the bottom, free advertisement, President Michael Galimi, Common Council.
Yep.
Free
Okay?
advertisement, that was
Yeah,
part of the
yeah,
process.
he had it in every single OD newspaper. And I want to make sure that it's not there. It should be from the clerk. The clerk sets up the meeting. That's what it should be. So I want to make sure that it's not, or put all our names in there, the Common Council, not just one person, because we're the one that votes on legislation, not him. So I just want to make sure that we, as a council, do it right.
Okay,
I don't want that,
I understand.
okay?
I'd like the floor.
Can I
Councilman.
answer the
No,
I actually,
sure.
I'm just
Like
gonna
the
say
floor.
for the record, Mike Leamy isn't gonna be there next year, so that's specifically as a person isn't gonna be an
No,
issue.
I'd
And
like
I'd like
the
to
floor.
Now
just
going
end this.
forward,
uh,
he is.
I'd just like to end this here, because
Council
we're
members,
really
hold up.
5 minutes over.
Please.
You know what, I'm good. I'll
We're
do
good.
the-
We got
Okay.
5 minutes over.
I just want to, hold on, we're going to close the meeting in 2 minutes. Joseph, can you hold your thoughts until the next meeting?
Well, no, because
All
I
right.
just wanted one thing.
All right,
30
go ahead, go
seconds.
ahead.
So I agree with about the OD. We voted in January for the OD to be our paper. So there's, in my view, we're 6 months to go. We should do both to end it. That's the only reason. We have a commitment that they were gonna be our paper for the year. I agree with you that they don't do the job the Rome Sentinel is, but there is a lot of people who still buy the OD. There is many more who buy the Rome Sentinel. If we can afford it, I think we should honor our commitment and then vote for whatever we want to do with the new council.
All right, thank you,
Please,
council
Frank.
members. Just
Please,
briefly,
Frank.
we got 3 properties to sell. 1006 Wagner Street, 637 Plain Street, and 1215 Miller Street. They will be coming out of committee after the public hearing. Our pre-legislation meeting's closed. We got a 5-minute break until our main meeting. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm calling meeting to order under all duress that is currently still existing. It is 7/17, June 7th, 2023. Calling this meeting of the Common Council to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Aiello, Burmaster, Friend, Miola, Urban, Beatrice, Williamson, Classimo, Testa, DeBrango, Galimi, all present.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for the deceased members of the council. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did you? You're the only one. I'm straight.
First order of business this evening is the minutes from the previous council meeting. Are we going to read those?
I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading of the minutes, please, Mr. President.
Burmaster already seconded it. Form second, I guess. Any opposed? The minutes of the previous meeting have been dispensed. The minutes were posted on Eco 360 for the council and public to view. Next order of business this evening is public hearing. We do have 3 properties this evening. They are sale of 1006 Wager Street, 637 Plant Street, and the sale of 1215 Miller Street. No one was signed up to speak on those properties. I do have Pastor Debbie Kelsey on that list, but I'm guessing you wanted to be during public comment. All right, so I will move you to the top of that list, as you did sign up first. And we'll move on to call for a motion to pull Ordinance 8 from committee.
So moved.
Second, Mr. President.
Okay, second from Viola. Any opposed to pulling this from committee? Okay, it's out of committee. It's an ordinance approving the designation of Dariani Marte as an eligible and qualified project sponsor pursuant to Article 15 of GML for the purpose of the sale of 1006 Wager Street for a sum of $25,000 from the URA to the stated purchaser. The public hearing was just held. Your votes.
9 E's adopted.
Motion to pull ordinance number 10.
Motion, Mr. President.
Second.
Any opposed? Ordinance approving the designation of Kada Nagi as an eligible and qualified project sponsor under GML for the sale of 637 Plant Street. This is a sum of $40,000 from the URA. Public hearing was just held. Your votes.
9 E's adopted.
Motion to move ordinance number 12, the sale of
Second.
1215 Miller Street.
All right, motion to pull that from committee. Anyone opposed? It's on the floor. This is an ordinance approving the designation of Cho Tha Lindia as an eligible and qualified project sponsor pursuant to GML 1215 Miller Street. This is a sum of $250 from URA. Public hearing was just held. Your votes.
9 E's adopted.
Thank you very much. Next order of business is public comment period. We have 6 people signed up this evening. The first is Debbie Kelsey, if you could please approach the podium. The Common Council's provided you a copy of Section 3244 Public Comment Period Rule. Are you in agreement with this?
Yes.
Please state your name and you may begin.
I am Debbie Kelsey. I'm pastor at Tabernacle Baptist Church. Mr. President and esteemed city council members, I'm here to ask for your support for our resolution and application for a New York State Environmental Protection Fund grant for the continued restoration of our building. It sits over behind the Stanley on Hopper Street. You've probably passed it, and I hope that you together with us are enjoying the tower project that was phase 1, makes the tower gleam in the skyline. In phase 2, we were able to restore the exterior masonry of the sanctuary. Those stones had been falling off since Scott Ingersoll was a little boy over there, but it's looking great. We also worked on the roof of the sanctuary. So in this new phase, we'll be completing the sanctuary side aisle roofs and the flat roofs on the back part of the building, what we call Thorn Chapel, in addition to repointing that back area of the building. We appreciate your support. We appreciate what you do for our city. I'm sure you join me in appreciating our more than 400 people who worship together on an average Sunday and the variety of opportunities we provide, especially for young people throughout the week. We've recently added English classes and had a volleyball program for teenage boys through the summer, so it's an exciting time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next person is Ron Vincent. Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244, Public Comment Period Rule. You in agreement with this?
Yes, I am.
All right.
My name's Ron Vincent. I live in Utica, New York. Again, I'm up here to speak about the incomplete street projects in the city. Years ago, when I was a little kid, we used to have to get city licenses on our bicycles.
I remember. Yeah.
Remember that, Frank?
Yep.
They don't do that anymore, but I bet you there's still a law in the city of Utica. You have to have a license on a bicycle. And the discussion that was going on earlier about bicycles driving in a traffic lane, been doing that for years. On every street in the city of Utica, you drive in a traffic lane. What's wrong with driving a bicycle in a traffic lane on Genesee Street? Just think. Speed limit on Genesee Street is 30 miles an hour. How many bicycles will go 30 miles an hour for the person driving it? But then again, if they're gonna go and hold up traffic like everybody was saying, oh, the traffic would be held up on Genesee Street because of bicycles. There's also a law, and the police officer can probably verify it, that if you're holding up traffic by driving too slow, you can get a ticket for it. So if you got a licensed bicycle, licensed through the city of Utica, and you're a registered driver of that bicycle, and you're going down Genesee Street doing 8 miles an hour holding up traffic, God bless the police department. Pull them over and give them a ticket. I'll tell you one thing I'm really sick and tired of. They did a test paint job. I forget how many thousands of dollars that cost. I heard the guy from the engineering department say it was like $80,000. Now he just did another paint job. I don't know what that one cost. It's coming out of our tax dollars. Now all of a sudden they're talking about let's do something nice, and now we're going to have a permanent paint job with permanent paint that's probably going to cost us maybe $100,000, $200,000. And then all of a sudden, about 6 months later, they're going to want to change it and paint it and scrape it and do whatever they have to do again. I got a great idea. This is Utica, New York. It's not New York City. You watch television, you see people in New York City walking down the sidewalk. They're walking 20 people abreast. You could just about do that in Utica. Why don't we cut the sidewalks back halfway? You only need 2, 3 people at a time going down Genesee Street if you ever see that many of them. And then let's take some tax dollar money and install parking meters so every employee and state office employee and everybody else doesn't sit there and park their cars all day long for free. How is the businesses supposed to survive when they can't even find a parking spot down there? Move the parking spots in where you took half of the sidewalk out. Now you can have your bicycle lane if you want. You might even go back to 4-lane traffic, who knows? Something to think about, because these are things you never hear about brought up at this meeting. There's a lot of fighting back and forth. We need a bike lane, we don't need a bike lane. Here's 2 options. You don't want a bike lane? Let them drive in the traffic lane, ticket them if they haven't got a license on their bike, or if they're going too darn slow. Otherwise, take some money, cut the sidewalks back, move your curbs back, move your parking back along with meters, and let them pay $1 an hour, because most of the people that park there are, like I said, employees of all the businesses that are on Herkimer or on Genesee Street. There's no way anybody can come down there and go into a store and shop for something or get a cup of coffee, because there's no parking spot, because it's all employee parking. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Next speaker this evening is Cassandra Miller. The Common Council provided you a copy of Section 3244 Public Comment Period Rule. Are you in agreement with this?
Yes.
Please state your name and you may begin.
My name is Cassandra Miller, and I'm speaking as someone who moved to Utica a year ago, and I really love this city, and I think there's been so many really exciting things that are happening in the city. I work at Munson, and I'm excited to be there and just see all of the kind of revitalization happening here. And when I saw the complete streets and I saw that there were going to be bike lanes so that I could ride my bicycle from my apartment downtown to Munson, I got really excited. So I don't have an argument or anything. I just wanted to voice my opinion that I think the bike lanes are awesome. And they've been things that I've enjoyed in other cities that I've lived in. And I would love to enjoy them in Utica. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker this evening, and per the rules, Public Comment Period Rule 3244, the next two speakers are Jared Tuff and Nate Tuff. Are you here together speaking on the same things or different things? Okay. The first speaker this evening is Jared Tuff, or the next speaker, I should say. Common Council provided you a copy of Section 3244 Public Comment Period Rules. Pasted to the podium there. In agreement with this?
Yes.
Please state your name and you may begin.
Jared Laurel Tuff. Well, first of all, I would like to say it's good to hear you guys talking about the housing issue, but you didn't address whose fault it is and who it affects the most. And it really affects gentrification, and displacement has really affected me and my community a lot. So we're just going to talk about a little bit of statistics here. The Nubian community, you guys call us African Americans, but we're Nubians. In 2000, we were 82% of Corn Hill. In 2023, we're only 12. The immigrants were only 5%, and now they're 88% of Corn Hill. A lot of the housing problems don't affect the Caucasian neighborhoods. It only affects the African American neighborhoods. The population of, this is all of Utica, in 2000, look how high we were, and as you can see, in 2020, look, we're just going low, and you guys can get a copy. I'll give you a copy if you want. And now in 2030, you could see the projection of where we're headed. We're going to talk about home ownership. Right here, as you can see, in 2000, the Nubian people owned 274 properties. Now we only own 46 in 2020. And the Bosnians used to own 33. Now they own 748. This is straight gentrification in our faces. And we're not even going to do the business. I was going to do the business, but we're just talking about home ownership at this point. And it really is just terrible what we're going through. And we actually feel that Mr. Irving, that's his area, maybe there need to be some type of investigation going on here, and someone needs to be put in blame here, because gentrification and displacement is illegal. So, we should talk about that, and we don't want to say that that makes our immigrants illegal and coming here under illegal pretense, but we know a long time ago, when there was racism and it was accepted in America, after slavery, the Italians came over and they were able to benefit as being Caucasians. And that was back then. That was the 1900s. This is 2000. There's no way that the Asians and the Bosnians should be able to, come over here and step right over us this way. And, it doesn't just affect business. It affects education, housing. It's a lot that being affected. I appreciate you saying the area that was affected, but we need to talk about the people that it's affecting too. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nate Tuff. Common Council provided you a copy of Section 3244 Public Comment Period Rule. Are you in agreement with this?
Yes.
Please state your name and you may begin.
My name is Nathaniel Tuff. My name is what else did you say? State my name and what?
And you may begin. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, yes. Well, I came here for something brief, but after hearing my brother, I may have to add something onto that. First, I really came in here today because when I go to these stores, these corner stores, these bodega-looking stores, I noticed that our children in my community, they have to pass by the beer before they get to the juice. And you know, I don't think that that's correct. I don't think a child, when they go into the store to purchase something, I don't think that they should have to walk past this. I don't think that should be an image that they should see first. So I spoke to some of the owners and I asked them, especially the guy out on Oneida Street, I asked them, why do you have the beer before the juice? Why do these children have to walk past this and see this? You know, we all know an image is advertisement. And he told me that the reason he has it like that is because he needs to protect the beer. And it kind of made me feel bad because then I started thinking, well, what's more important, our youth? Of course, you're not going to really never get to know these children. You know, your kids are not going to play with my kids or anything like that. But I think that we shouldn't allow someone to put a price on our youth, whether it's in your area, north, east, south, west, because it actually creates a domino effect regardless, whether you can see the effect from your perspective or not. It still affects our city as a whole. So we need to start looking at things as a holistic point of view. Some of these things do need to be changed. You know, these loose cigarettes that are being sold in the stores. You know, they're not even. I don't even think they're legal. They have no tax mark on them. And I know we've raided these positions in these places before because of this scenario. But at the same time, we have to consider the future. We don't know what these cigarettes are doing to these kids. You know, later on, 20 years from now, you know, Utica may be flooded with emphysema. We may be flooded with respiratory diseases because these cigarettes are not legal. And we're sitting here and we're allowing this. I mean, so I'm trying to see, like, well, what is the major agenda? I just think something needs to be done about that. That was what I came up here for first in the beginning. But after, where'd he go? After looking at some of my brother's statistics, I mean, if this is true, then we definitely need to put in a little more work on whether it's something that you feel personally that you should do or not. It's just the right thing to do. You know, for people to. I'm from Utica, New York. I'm from Cornhill. I feel like when I speak to you guys, I have a born right to speak to you because I'm from here. I remember when Zalatanos was on James Street. I remember when everybody cut their grass. I remember when people took their garbage out. Mm-hmm. I remember when I didn't have to look and see crack bags and needles everywhere. I remember when this city was beautiful. I remember when the judge was the judge, and he handed down something fair and to the people. You know, I can reemphasize on great people. You guys are great as well for even making it to the position that you're here for. But if you're not going to do anything with the position that you have obtained, then it's actually a waste. I haven't heard this young man speak much, maybe because some of you in the room make him feel like he has no need to speak. I've seen plenty of people in that position. Huh? I've seen plenty of people in that position, and I mean, it's good to take intelligent people and put them in intelligent positions. I remember some of the older council you had here. I mean, come on, he drunk every day. He wasn't going to do anything for these people, and most of you even knew it. As long as his taxes was paid and he lived in a decent spot, I would see him in the store. We'd both be getting a beer together. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but when you do it consecutively and you do it consistently, you're not going to be able to help anyone because you still need help yourself. But that's not the main reason why I'm here. After looking at my brother's statistics, who in here is willing to see a change? Because I remember growing up watching my grandmother and my grandfathers and all of them work hard for some of this property that is just being handed out like flapjacks. You know, and I don't know if that's the law, if that's legislation, if that's the way we do things. If it is, then as an American citizen, I have to follow that same law as well. But at the same time, you need to be given more. I mean, it would be nice if you gave more of the people who are from these particular areas the opportunity to have some of their property instead of just pushing them out and giving them the opportunity to own a piece of property. And we all know when something is yours, you take better care of it, don't you? Don't you? Don't you take care of your stuff better? Naturally we do. And that goes the same when it comes to these housing, when it comes to housing developments and everything. We can't overlook them just because some people on a certain spectrum are very small. because we're doing big things now. Naturally, Utica could have always been doing big things. Utica has always been known as an arrow. We've always been known as a great industry. We've always been known for doing great things. They have great inventions here. I have an invention. And not one person in this room have even asked me or even reached out to me to see what it could do for our economy, to see what it could do for our community. We could put damn near half of these people to work. But moving right along, before we could do that, people do need a place to live. I said something to our president, excuse me, to the president. I have some great ideals. We have some great minds here. Not good minds, we have some great minds here. And some of you ladies and gentlemen sitting here have great minds as well. Let's come together as some sort of amalgamation. Let's come together and it's not a Democrat or Republican thing or a party thing, it's a right thing. You know what I mean? If you know something is right to do for someone, whether it's in your district or not, you're supposed to do it. That's a real American. That's who we need to be having sitting here. Some of the things that we conversate about should be something that it should be easy resolved, you know what I mean? Let's not complicate things because there's other issues and there's other things on higher agendas that's gonna affect other people, and it may not be your children, but I see it from my community. It hurts me when I go through Oneida Street and I see people sleeping on the ground, when I see guys with needles in their arm, when I see people who can barely stand up because there's so much on drugs, on these drugs that we are allowing to be pumped out of our stores, and some of them have barcodes and we're not standing up to do enough. Sometimes when you look at it as I'm sorry, bro, I'm talking too much. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. But my name is Daniel Tuff. Just please consider the things that I said, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. And remember that podium, the little easel. You guys are leaving the little metal easel. Thank you. There you go. Thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you.
We have one more speaker this evening. Mary Hayes Short. Mrs. Gordon, may approach. Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244 Public Comment Period Rule. Are you in agreement with this?
Yes.
Please state your name and you may begin.
Okay, hi. I'm Mary Hayes Gordon, and this is Jan Diamicis. We are the co-chairs of the Oneida County Freedom Trail Commission, and what we do is we research and verify, document, and publicize abolition and Underground Railroad activity throughout the county. We have developed a walking tour here in the city of Underground Railroad and abolition sites that we give here and there whenever people ask. And we've also designed a self-guided tour with signs throughout, and we're making a brochure. So we came tonight because today Dr. Diamicis left with the city clerk information about our application to have Post Street in Utica designated by the National Park Service as part of the Network to Freedom. So this is not the same as like National Historic Sites with all sorts of, this is basically, they put up a sign and they designate it. And then we advertise it through the National Network of Freedom and the State Network to Freedom. So I know that it got in too late for you all to get to tonight, but you'll get it probably at your next meeting. We'll be back in case you have any questions, but we just wanted to give you a heads up that it's coming.
Thank you very much.
Oh.
No, you can't. We can't. Because but you have something.
Yeah. The National Park Service requires that we get the permission from the city of Utica to get that designation. And it doesn't require upkeep, it doesn't require maintenance, it doesn't require anything except this is a spot that the city of Utica allows the National Park Service to designate as a National Underground Railroad site. So they require it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. That closes public comment period. We have no guests this evening. We do not have communications from the mayor. We do have reports from the city officers, though. Chief Ingerson.
Nothing to report today.
Thank you very much. Corporation Counsel.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Lieutenant Brote.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Commissioner.
I feel obligated to report things to the council every time I come here, but I can't think of anything right now.
It's okay.
I have nothing to report.
It's okay. I could ask you to report something.
Sure.
Why don't you give a summary
Okay.
for the council on what happened with the pipe situation. And I think it was.
Oh, that was
Breaker
a pain in
House.
the butt.
Yeah,
Tackling.
yeah, because you did a lot of work on that.
Yeah, so, you know, I think one of the things that frustrates our residents about the codes department is that we don't fix things. We enforce the laws. There's two ways that we enforce the laws. We give tickets, right? We ask nicely, so I guess that's the third way. Or we can do abatements on certain nuisances where the city does it and bills it to your taxes, and there's very specific cases in which we can do that. So, you know, we had a very frustrating 6-month ordeal with sewage pipe, you know, that was backed up. Person couldn't afford to fix it. I mean, the judge can order them to fix it. We can ticket them to fix it. And if they physically can't afford to fix it, like, there's no solution. And so we worked very hard with our plumbing inspector to find more affordable ways that would make an acceptable fix, but meanwhile the neighbors had to live with sewage spewing out of their neighbor's house for times. So we eventually got the pipe fixed. Mike harassed me about that every week, but it took a long time, and I wrote an email. That's why he's asking me to refer to it, to apologize for how long it took.
It wasn't really an apology. You wrote a very good email that explained to the homeowner next door what happened, basically.
Code just takes a long time because the country is very protective over people's properties. And property rights are taken seriously by courts of law. And when we order people to do things for their property, or we try to take government actions against somebody's property, they make sure it goes through a lot of channels. And it's just difficult. So you can call codes now. Just because you don't hear from us doesn't mean we're not doing anything. It just takes time for us to get these fixes implemented.
Thank you.
Thank you. I came up with a report.
There you go. All right. Do we have a cash report?
Yes, we do.
City of Utica cash report for April 2023, total 77.041 million received and filed.
Thank you very much. Petitions, remonstrances, and appeals. First District Councilmember Keedy Aiello, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted, I think they already left, but the Oneida County Freedom Trail, I did receive the packet from the clerk's office. It's a great program and something I'll be willing to, I'll follow up with them after to work with putting something together for them, and then the whole council can take a look at it as well. A couple things I wanted to cover. Well, mainly just a reminder that tomorrow is my monthly office hours, so it'll be from 2 to 4 p.m. this month at my coffee shop at Character Coffee. So if you have any questions in the district or thoughts, concerns, we can meet in person or we can schedule another time if that doesn't work. Other than that, I'm all set tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Second District Councilmember Robert Burmaster, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got a few things I'd like to talk about tonight. I had a call from a constituent in the last couple of weeks, and I notified the Utica Police Department, and they did a phenomenal job, and I want to thank the officers that responded, Sweet and Costello. They want to, you know, we do it all the time. You know, we get complaints, we call, and the people who are taking care of the complaints, they're not recognized, and I think it's so important because it goes unnoticed, and there's a lot of things that keep this city what it is, and I just want a shout out to the officers for doing such a nice job.
Absolutely, I'll relay that to the chief of police. Can I just get an address or a street even, or they
Warren Street.
Warren Street? Okay.
It was mostly Costello. Sweet didn't do that.
Councilman, I'll certainly relay that to the chief of police.
No, I appreciate that.
Compliment, thank you.
And I had a call from a lady from the community outreach for the West Side Kitchen over there, and they do a thrift shop on Mondays, and they open from 11 to 11:30, and it's all volunteers. They've got 40 or 50 retirees that come in and work this thrift shop, and I had the opportunity to stop down this past Monday, and they took me on a tour, and I was really impressed on what they offer and how clean it was, and it was good for the community, and again, the Utica Police Department sent a car there to do a walkthrough because they feel that they need some security, so they're asking for volunteers if anybody who would be willing to work as a security type person in the waiting room for a couple hours on a Monday, they'd appreciate it. The lady's name is Nancy Robert, and she's a retiree, and it was nice to see the volunteers. And they also had a crisis team come down, and then they kind of walked through with the volunteers, and I was so impressed on the way they handled it. I've been in West Utica all my life. I didn't even know such a thing existed, and it was really nice. And they do bag lunches on weekends, and Lucretia Hunt is involved in the bags that they hand out to the area residents, and I'd like to give her a shout out and thank her. And I don't normally do this, but the West Utica, the organization they have, the West Utica Neighbor Association, they participated in the parade this past Memorial Day, and it was good to see some of the residents out. Unfortunately, I was out of town, but it's nice to see the people get involved. They also spent time cleaning up Lincoln Playground. They did a nice job there. They'll be having a DJ and a food truck tomorrow night up to Addis Miller, 5 to 8. If anybody would like to come up, they're going to have some tables out. They're going to have an informational table, and they're going to have vendors. And if you have an opportunity, hope the weather's permitting and the air is better. But and then next week, of course, down to 5 Points, they're going to have Meet the Candidates at 5 Points from 6 o'clock until. And I'm looking forward to meeting the candidates. And the last thing I want to say is just put it in the can. You know, I get so many calls, people call up. Is it time? Well, I like to see you put it in the can all the time. It just makes it easier for the city to clean it up. But thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Third District, Councilperson Friend, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The only thing I have to say is Happy Pride Month. The Pride flag is flying over City Hall. It's flying in front of the State Office building, which is great to see. And Happy Pride Month from now until the end of June. Thank you.
Thank you. Fourth District and Majority Leader, Frank Miola, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just going off of Ronnie's bicycle nice speech out there, there is a whole bunch of bicycle ordinances still in our city code.
Yes,
and,
there is.
It's still there. It's from 216, 291 to 300. So there's a few pieces still in there. I'd just like to thank you for that. Second thing, I'd just like to wish everybody June 18th is Father's Day. So enjoy your family, enjoy your children, enjoy being Father's Day, because we all have families, and it's good to spend the time with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Fifth District, Councilperson Venice Urban, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. And we got the Juneteenth Festival coming up from June 15th through the 18th. The 15th and 16th, they'll be walking on the Freedom Trail, we call it, or whatever they want to call it, where the slaves used to come when they were trying to get freedom. And a lot of people don't know we even have that in this area, but on the 15th and 16th, they'll be walking those trails. On the 17th, they'll be having this Juneteenth festival out at Proctor Park. And on Sunday, June 18th, they'll be having a ceremony over at Munson. And I think it's singing or a fashion show or something that they did last year. I'm not positive yet. But if anybody has a chance, get out and do some of those events. Also, tomorrow, they'll be dedicating Kemper Park with all the renovations that have been done. And I want to thank the city of Utica, Marcus, and everybody that was involved in that. A lot of people complained about zip line when we talked about putting it in. But now the kids are really thrilled about having that, because it's the only one in Utica. And we also have a nice, if you want to call it a stage with electricity that goes to it, where a lot of the community and people in the city of Utica organizations, groups, or whatever can use it for the events that they have. So if you get a chance, watch the news, because it might be raining tomorrow, and you'll see me, Marcus, and the rest of us out there standing in the rain or whatever, talking into the microphone about how great it is, because it is great, and we spent a lot of money to upgrade it. So I hope that somebody can make it. Thank
We'll
you.
have the conference, rain or shine, anybody wants to go, and
Yeah.
if you know any teachers that teach in schools near the area, the stage is also designed to be an outdoor classroom, so
Yeah.
it might be a good.
I was actually gonna go, unfortunately with the smoke effect now, I
Yeah, yeah.
can't take my students to the ceremony tomorrow,
Right.
so maybe if we reschedule, we'll be able to go. I'll be able to take my class.
The problem is, and we might because of the smoke, so I don't wanna go there, but the serious concern about rescheduling it is that people use it whether we open it or not, so you're just better off opening it, you know what I mean?
All right, we good? Thank you. Sorry. Just gotta do my job.
Yeah, I know.
I appreciate it.
I'm being annoying.
I appreciate it. No, it's fine. 6th District. Councilman Joe Beatrice, you have the floor.
Thank you. Venice, did you tell everybody how Marcus fell off the zip line? First time down. So, I wasn't gonna say anything tonight, but after public comment, I was very impressed by the Mr. Tuff. And I just wanna, say one thing. This is my 4th year on the council, and, ever since I've been on the council, I've been on the, Urban Renewal Board. And it's probably been one of the most rewarding and saddest boards to be on. We have, and I gave Mr. Tuff my number, and I'm gonna hope that he calls me, and I'm gonna try to educate him on how that works a little bit, to get a hold of Gene Allen, and have, a lot more, people coming there. We work very, very hard. Mr. Burmaster's on this board, Stephanie's the attorney, Marcus is on it. We work very, very hard and very fair with people. It's heartbreaking. They come, they purchase, they put bids in for these houses at low rates, and there's many people that are off, that could get qualified for these houses, but we take our time and we try to give it to the person who's gonna live in the house, who has a family, and we work, it's tireless, and it's so happy to see the one person get it, but it's terrible to see these 6 or 7 other people get it. And I would love to see a lot more, people of color come and apply for these houses. Quite frankly, we don't see that. And part of that, after listening to Mr. Tuff speak, has to be because they don't know really about it. Because houses go for $8,000 or $10,000 sometimes. They do have to have money to fix them, and we go through it. The other part, I seen your board, and I was very impressed by your boards, that there's people, how many people do not have the houses. Any person, and Marcus could back me up, and Mr. Burmaster would do the same thing. So many times people have gotten in trouble and they've lost their house, but now they've came back with the money. We always give it back to the people. We try never to take houses from anybody. It's our last resort. And like I said, I gave them my phone number, and I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to hook you up with Gene Allen so he can show you the properties that are available in the city. And so thank you so much for coming out here, because I never realized the numbers that you showed me tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman at Large and Minority Leader Mark Williamson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question for Marcus. There's a property on Derbyshire I was driving by the other day. It's got like 3-foot tall grass behind a wrought iron fence. You know what I'm talking about? So I just,
How much should I tell you?
No, I don't want to know
You said you had a
nothing.
question, so I'll answer it.
Oh, no.
We're behind all over the city on grass, not codes. I don't want to throw any department under the bus, but we're behind. I mean,
Okay.
it's and so the administration is looking at ways to get caught up, and I'm confident that by the end of 2 weeks, we'll be caught up on all the grass in parks and vacant lots, because we issue the abatements. It's up to somebody else to come.
Okay.
So I think in 2 weeks it'll look
I have
lot
a
better.
comment on that.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I
That's all I
checked,
had.
well, no, so I did want to mention though, because I asked Commissioner Short for these updates quite a bit, especially in this season. And it was 2 weeks ago, so I don't have a current update, but as of 2 weeks ago, our seasonal employment that deals with trimming, no, not just abatements, because what happens is there's 12 seasonal employees that maintain the parks. They mow the lawns, they do the weeding, etc. 2 weeks ago, there was only 4 of them filled out of the 12. And what happens is that gets backfilled in their absence from the other departments as well. So that's one of the main issues there, is the people were not there to actually do the work yet. And as Marcus, I should say Commissioner Phillips stated, they are now catching up on it. So that's what's going on.
And then for the Freedom Trail, which is a great idea, but I didn't hear anything about the History Center being involved with the whole process. You know, they should be part of it, as well as the city historian. I haven't heard anything, so we need to get input on that when we vote on that from the History Center. We haven't heard anything, so I haven't heard anything.
I think they're affiliated.
I don't know. I don't know.
Actually, if you, and you had asked this question earlier. If you
That's all I have. You can have.
All right, thank you. All right. Councilwoman at large, Samantha Colosimo-Testa,
Thank
you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I did do the Freedom Trail. Michelle Truitt I was fortunate enough to do it with her, and it was a great tour. I did it with my friend Robert Evans, and it was I didn't even know about it, so it was quite the tour to go on, and I think the council as a whole should possibly take that tour, and that was the only thing that I was going to mention to those that had mentioned earlier. But I'm still in baseball mode, and unfortunately, due to the smoke, we had to cancel our baseball game tonight, or I wouldn't have been here. So I guess there's a double-edged sword to all that. But I did want to mention that the Utica Little League 10U travel ball team had an undefeated baseball tournament this weekend at Accelerate Sports. We played teams from Pennsylvania and some local teams. So that was a huge win. So I want to congratulate Coach Anthony DeSaro, Michael Curley, Peter Padula, and myself. I also coached that team, but I just wanted to give a little shout out to the boys that played on that team, because they definitely made Utica proud, and we got a huge trophy, and I wanted to put it inside City Hall, but I don't know, the mayor's got to show up to some games if he wants to take some credit for the stuff that goes on in baseball and Little League. But I wanted to give a shout out to Rocco Giordano, Anthony G, Johnny Marciano, Anthony D, Michael B, Mello, Santino, Trey, Leo, and Peter for making Utica proud over the weekend. So it was a cool little thing to watch, and I got a letter that I'm sending them, but hopefully we can bring them in over the next couple of weeks and congratulate them on the series. So that is it. Oh, wait, one more thing. Job well done to the Utica Little League as well. They had public safety night. What night was it?
First responder.
First responders.
It was Monday.
Night,
Yes.
Monday night.
Yes. Monday evening.
Mixing my days up now, but Monday night I thought it was a well-attended event. Councilman Beach was there, and I know other city council people were in attendance as well. So Jim Holt put that on, and with the help on behalf of Mike Gentile, Mike did, our council president did the national anthem on his saxophone. Right? Saxophone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you've been a drummer, a saxophone.
All the other
things,
trumpet.
but yeah. So it was a well-attended event, and it was very nice. So I just wanted to commend everybody that was involved in that. So thank you.
Thank you. Council at large and President Pro Tem Frank DeBrango, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Congratulations to the team, the baseball team, for winning the tournament. I look back, and I was a coach way back when in minor league and little league, and I know Michael has, kids that are going through it. I know Frankie had his children go through it. Sam's kids are going through it now. Just enjoy every moment of that, because, it's you're gonna miss those games. They're gonna play the high school ball and maybe a little bit of college. But when it's all said and done, you really kind of miss it. You miss taking them to the games, taking them for ice cream after, whatever it was. But it's a good time, and when they get that hit and they're standing on second base and they're looking at you, and it's just a good feeling as a parent. So enjoy every moment of it. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to end on a high note and move on to the legislation.
Thank you.
All right. The first piece this evening is ordinance number 1, sponsored by Council Member Burmaster. It needs a second from Councilperson Friend. Intersections where stop required. I will read this, but you can put your votes up on the board before we call it. Be it ordained that section 216.358, Schedule C, intersections where stops required, be amended to read as follows. Fink Avenue and Grandview Avenue, southwest and northeast corners of Fink Avenue, be it further ordained, the proper signage be erected where necessary. Your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
Next piece needs a sponsor, actually. Miola has moved it. Councilman Beatrice's hand went up. This is the announcement of the dates for July and August Common Council meetings. For those listening on YouTube and in the audience, the Common Council has a summer session where there's only one meeting per month. Be it resolved that the Common Council does hereby schedule its regular July Common Council meeting for Wednesday, July 19th, 2023 at 7 p.m. and its August Common Council meeting for Wednesday, August 16th, 2023 at 7 p.m. at the Common Council chambers. Your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
Thank you. Proposed ordinance number 3 is a bond ordinance dated June 7th, 2023. I'll read the title, but I believe there's a motion from the floor. Bond ordinance authorizing the issuance of $250,000 of serial bonds of the City of Utica, Oneida County, New York, to finance the cost of the purchase of computer equipment. Motion from the floor.
Motion to commit, please, Mr. President.
Second from DeBrango. Any opposed to committing this piece of legislation? Thank you, Judge. It's committed. Next ordinance, sponsored by Councilmember Irvin, needs a second. Second from DeBrango. Handicap parking sign required. Be it ordained that section 216.378, Schedule W, handicap parking locations of the Utica City Code be amended to include the following. To place one handicap parking sign in front of 1516 Taylor Avenue, be it further ordained that the proper signage be erected where necessary. Your vote.
9 yeas adopted.
Next piece is resolution number 5. This needs to be moved. Moved by Miola, second from Friend. This is a Board of Assessment review appointment. Be it resolved that pursuant to section 523 of the Real Property Tax Law, the following person is hereby appointed as a member of the Board of Assessment and Review commencing April 5th, 2023 and ending on September 30th, 2027. Person is David Williams. The address will not be spoken publicly. Your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
Okay. Next piece is sponsored by Councilmember Friend. We need a second.
Can we make this full council, please, Mr.
Yes.
President?
Full council. Thank you very much for that.
The next two.
Okay, we'll do that as well. Thank you. This is moved by Friend. Do we have a second? Second from Burmaster. It's a historic preservation grant for Tabernacle Baptist Church. Whereas the Tabernacle Baptist Church of Utica is applying to the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, OPRHP, for a grant under Title IX of the Environmental Protection Act of 1993 for a historic preservation project to be located at 13 Clark Place, Houston, New York, etc., requesting funding up to $500,000. Be it resolved that by this Common Council of the City of Utica here does approve, endorse the application of Tabernacle Baptist Church for a grant under Title IX of the EPA 1993 for historic preservation project known as Phase 3 Masonry Roof Water Runoff Roofing and located within this community. Your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
All right, next piece is full council again. Who's sponsoring it? Friend. Second from Williamson. Thank you. Historic preservation grant for the Silas D. Childs Chapel at Forest Hill Cemetery. Much of this language is similar. However, I'm going to read the whereas. The chapel is listed on the historic register for having been built circa 1868, dedicated in 1870. Over the ensuing 153 years, the Child's Chapel has provided our community with a venue for funeral services, community meetings, photos for weddings, graduations, family gatherings, religious services, and memorial services for the loved ones. The chapel is now in urgent need of repairs to its exterior stone walls and interior walls, both which have suffered extensive damage due to moisture. Be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Utica hereby does approve and endorse the application of Forest Hill Cemetery for a grant within the State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO, to preserve and repair the Silas D. Childs Chapel in order to preserve this vital local landmark. Your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
Apparently there's a cat or a baby somewhere. I know. Yeah. The next piece is proposed resolution number 8. It's a resolution approving the intermunicipal agreement with the county for habitability inspections. Moved by Miola. Second from Williamson. Be it resolved, the Common Council of the City of Utica hereby authorizes and approves acceptance of the proposed intermunicipal agreement and substantially in the same form as attached hereto for the term of January 1st, 2022. Oh, we need to fix this. Yes. Wait. That makes no sense. January 1st, 2023 is probably what this should read, no?
It's the county's budget term, so the county's what, January, December?
Right, yeah, so I would just like to, I'll read it into the record, this was moved, so it's not like we need an amendment. Agreement and substantially in the same form as attached hereto for the term of January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023, that's gotta be it, right?
Well, it doesn't make a difference because
Still within that period.
Is it a 2-year?
We don't know when the last one ended though, Mike.
Yeah, the contract is from, in the actual contract is January 1st, 2022 to the 2023.
Okay, that's how I'm
I don't
gonna
wanna-
read it in the record then, thank you. January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2023. Be it further resolved that the mayor is authorized to execute this agreement and any documents necessary to effectuate the intents of this resolution.
I understand what you're saying now, it should say 2023.
No, the contract says 2022.
No, because our budgets don't align. So the county passes it.
Makes sense.
So that, because our budget starts in April, so it has to span both years. The counties are January to December, so it's over 2 years so they can allocate the money. And then when our budget runs out again, they pass another one.
No, it makes sense. It's in the contract that way.
Yeah.
Your votes.
It's only a 1-year contract, right?
It's a 1-year
So it would already exceed
intermunicipal
that,
agreement, but the contract has to span the budget year
Two.
disagreements
Yes, we're not in
timeline.
2024 yet.
Right.
9 yeas adopted.
Thank you. Ordinance number 9 is an ordinance authorizing the sale of 5 Utica Police Department vehicles. Miola has moved it. Williams, clear the board.
And I'll second.
9 yeas adopted. All right, Williamson's the second on this.
The only thing that we should have just added at the end of it, and it could just be after the, be it further ordained, it could just add a little amendment or a little side note that the vehicles, are totaled.
That's where we got the attachment.
We're going to
you put
include
the
the memo.
attachment with it? Oh, okay, all right, then
Yes.
I
All
take
right,
that, I
so-
rescind that motion.
An ordinance authorizing the sale of 5 Utica Police Department vehicles.
I think it's more than
Ordain, what's that?
10.
Why does it say 5?
10, next page.
Next page, 2 pages.
No, the title says 5.
That's incorrect.
Yeah.
10. I make an amendment.
I'll read the proper title into the record. Ordinance authorizing the sale of 10 Utica Police Department vehicles. Ordained that pursuant to section 7.007 of the Utica City Charter, the mayor or his authorized representative is hereby authorized to sell the city-owned personal property described below. Further ordained the property to be sold is described as follows. It is a 2010 Explorer, 2010 Crown Vic, 2015 Taurus, 2018 Explorer, 2017 Taurus, 2010 Tahoe, a 2010 Chevrolet Impala, 2010 Impala, a 2011 Crown Vic, and a 2015 Taurus. These have all either been deemed unusable or totaled. And there is a memo included with the legislation describing as such. Further ordained, the funds collected from the sale of said terms shall be deposited into account bearing an identification number of A409-266-501. Your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
All right. We have an E&A transfer for the budget year 2022-2023. Be it ordained, controllers hereby authorized and directed to make the following transfer of funds. This is to reallocate due to chargebacks to the city's paving program in the last budget year. It's moved by Miola. Who's the second? Burmaster is the second on this one. It is multiple accounts. I'll read the 2-line. It's engineering wages, overtime pay, electric and gas and oil for a sum of $55,088. $10,854, $552, and $6,605. Your votes.
9 E's adopted.
Mr. President, I'd like to refer to committee ordinance number 11.
Ordinance number 11 is, okay, second from Colosimo Testa is the second. Any opposed to placing that in committee? Is there any other business this evening?
No. Motion to adjourn, Mr. President.
Okay. We're done. Have a great evening. Thank you.